There's no denying that new vehicle pricing has really gotten out of hand to the point where it's really starting to price out a lot of entry-level shoppers. Now, thankfully, a lot of manufacturers are starting to notice that, which is why we're out here in Detroit, Michigan, testing out the newest affordable model from Buick. This right here is the brand new 2024 Envista, an entry-level coupe-ified SUV with a starting price of just under $25,000. So if you guys are on a budget and you're looking for a new sporty and premium SUV, how does the brand new 2024 Envista stack up? Stay tuned to find out. So before we start talking about the premium and interesting new styling of the Envista, let me show you guys what's powering this vehicle. Now, if you guys are also familiar with the just redesigned 2024 Chevrolet Trax, the Envista and the Chevy share a platform and they also share a powertrain. So you have just one engine choice underneath the hood here. It's a 1.2 liter turbocharged direct injection 3-cylinder engine. That's right, this is a 3-cylinder, not a 4-cylinder, but it is turbocharged, which is going to give it kind of a unique sound and more power versus a lot of its competitors. At 137 horsepower and 162 pound-feet of torque. Obviously the horsepower isn't a lot, but that 162 pound-feet of torque is definitely a big number for something that doesn't weigh that much. Now the downside, of course, with this being based off of the Chevrolet Trax is you cannot get all-wheel drive on the Envista. Buick will happily sell you an Encore GX if you want all-wheel drive. This vehicle here is only front-wheel drive, but thankfully, it also doesn't use a CVT. For those of you who prefer a stepped traditional automatic, this car has a 6-speed automatic transmission that's built by Aisin. So again, it's got a really conventional setup for the powertrain. Fuel economy is also pretty good, 28 in the city and 32 on the highway. That's on regular gas. It also should be getting one of the best gas mileage in the segment. You're not going to be able to actually tow with this vehicle because towing is not recommended for this car. However, it is fairly light. Buick says that this vehicle weighs in at just under 3,200 pounds. So again, that is very light by modern car standards. But let's go ahead and close up the hood and talk about the rest of the styling here with this vehicle. Now, as you can see, it's got a prop rod because remember, it's a sub $25,000 vehicle. And this car essentially is showing off a new styling direction for Buick. They took a lot of styling cues from the Wildcat EV concept that they showed at the auto show a couple of years ago. You can see it's got the new corporate front end of Buick. This Avenir trim that I'm showing you is the highest trim level. It has a unique grille finish with some silver accents over here. You can see all Envistas come standard with the company's full LED headlights, so you'll have an LED daytime running light, LED turn signal. This upper portion here is actually the headlight, or the daytime running light. Down here, you'll find the headlights. No fog lights on this vehicle. You do have some functional openings and some non-functional openings, but overall, you can see with the new Tri-Shield Buick grille or emblem here at the front, it definitely looks pretty interesting. In fact, compared to the Chevrolet Trax, I actually think I might prefer the look of this car slightly more, but let me know in the comment section below what you guys think of the overall design. Now, of course, looking at the side profile, this is actually a pretty big vehicle, at least when you consider the price point and what it competes with. Its wheelbase is 106 inches long. Its overall length is a little over 182.5 inches long. This, compared to the Trax, is about 4 inches longer. And if you compare it to Buick's own Encore GX, which is technically a class above this vehicle, this is almost a foot longer in the overall length, and you can really see that extra length, especially in the rear area of the vehicle. The wheelbase has been extended. It's going to give this car definitely a more aggressive, more premium stance to it. Now, looking at the wheels, Buick offers a choice between either a 17 or this 19-inch finish wheel that's painted in this kind of luster nickel metallic look to it. These are included with the Avenir trim, which is definitely a nice touch. The tire sizes are actually pretty fat too, a 245 by 45 R19. So it's a nice wide tire. You have all disc brakes, and then you have an independent front suspension, and you also have an independent rear suspension. Although keep in mind, if you guys go for the base trim of the Envista, it'll actually have a twist beam semi-independent, which the independent rear suspension is unique, I believe, to the Buick. You can't get that on the Chevy. Now you can see the side mirrors, you can see are body colored. You have these integrated turn signals, a lot of chrome accents on the vehicle. If you guys go for the sportier ST trim, which is kind of like an ST appearance, it's an appearance package. It kind of blacks out a lot of the elements. You can see sunroof here, it's just a standard sunroof. It tilts and it slides open completely. And then you can see here that coupe-like body style. This is Buick's first SUV that has that kind of swoopy coupe-like rear end. And I have to say, it works on this vehicle. I really like this kind of chrome trim piece. It really kind of gives it off like a concept car look to it. And then when you look at the rear, the taillights are very unique, and they're actually unique unique on the Avenir trim. They have like kind of a chrome finish to them. If you guys look at the other trims of the Envista, you'll actually have a red colored taillight as opposed to the chrome. You can see LED accents here, although the turn signal is sadly just an incandescent at the rear. It looks a little bit cheap, if I'm being honest, but it is still a very nice looking rear end, especially when you look at the price. You can see you've got the new Buick logo. There's a lot of badging back here. I also noticed Buick is starting to spell out Buick in the back underneath the emblem. It shows off that you're an Avenir trim. And then you can see nice big chrome area here on the lower part of the rear bumper, along with some nicely integrated parking sensors. Now, the one thing I also am noticing, no rear wiper back here. I'm really hating that trend. A lot of manufacturers are removing that. They say that because of the slope of this, the wind is going to kind of brush the water away when you're driving the vehicle. That might be fine in the rain, but if you guys live in snowy areas, you're not going to be able to get the snow off just by driving it. So that's something where I'd like to see them stop doing that. You can see here, no rear spoiler as well. Your third brake light is up there. I think the rear could use some kind of like a wing back here, or at least a rear wiper, but overall, it's still a nice looking design. Now, looking at the cargo area, this vehicle has that sloping roofline, so it's going to mean it's going to have slightly reduced cargo figures versus the Trax, and at just over 25 cubic feet of storage space just over 20 cubic feet of storage space, this is actually still a pretty good amount. You can see there's some storage to the side. There's also a little bit of, actually a lot of underfloor storage. There's actually still a spare tire, which is definitely nice. There's also a power liftgate, which you typically don't find in the segment. The power liftgate, however, is included if you guys go for the highest trim. If you fold down the second row seats, which you cannot do from back here, you have to go into the second row. Buick says it expands it out to around 42 cubic feet of space. Now, 42 is actually a pretty decent amount, but just keep in mind, compared to something like the Chevrolet Trax, which has a more conventionally shaped rear end, that has a little over 50 cubic feet, so you're reducing it by about 8 cubic feet in total. So moving on to the interior of the brand new Buick Envista. This model that I'm sitting in is the Avenir trim, and it actually has a really interesting color combination. It's a two-tone, which I'll talk about later on, but let me get in and shut the door. The door has a relatively solid sounding thunk. Remember, this is built on the same architecture as the new Chevy Trax. Now, here's the key fob for the vehicle. You can see this is their intelligent access key system. It's a nice size key. It has your usual buttons here for lock, unlock, remote start, actually. And then there's also a power liftgate function, which is rare in the segment. And then you have a panic function. The start-stop button is right here. It's kind of blocked by the steering wheel, but you can see once you turn the vehicle on, it's not a hybrid or a mild hybrid. It has a very traditional starter noise. And then basically the piece de resistance in this interior is this big screen. Buick is very proud of this 19-inch display. As you can see, it's technically comprised of two displays. You have an 8-inch infotainment system or instrument panel here, and then an 11-inch infotainment system here with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. You can see my phone is connected. The one thing I don't like about this screen is the same thing I complained about in the Trax, is there's a lot of black unused real estate on the plastic bezel here. There's just too much, and I also don't love the design of it. I think GM in general could have done with a more elegant looking screen. I also noticed the graphics are a little bit crude. They're not quite as nice looking as what you're going to see in something like the more expensive vehicles like the GMC Canyon, for example, that I just tested, or the Chevrolet Colorado. But in terms of the materials, it is relatively solid in here in terms of the stuff and what the equipment you get. You can see the door panel here sadly is a hard touch plastic material, but I do love this kind of textured aluminum look trim that you get on the Avenir trim. You have a chrome door handle here. It's padded with this kind of interesting texture to the leather on the door. It's actually a faux leather. Buick, I remember, said that they tried to make it look almost like material you find on fancy purses as opposed to animal skin or animal hide. It has a different texture to it. The steering wheel, you can see, is a nice looking wheel. It's a flat bottom design. You have the new Buick logo over here. No paddles on the wheel, but you have a lot of controls here. You have a heated steering wheel. You have controls to control that. Adaptive cruise control, which is technically optional. The horn, I don't love the way that sounds. It sounds a little puny, but that's kind of like a little bit of a small detail. You can see the dash has more of that material that kind of resembles like a fancy high-end bag or purse with some black plastic. You have some chrome splashed throughout here. And then down over here, you can see you just have a single zone automatic climate control. You have 3-level heated seats. And then you can see here, there are some unused buttons like this one right here. I would have liked to see like cooled seats offered on the Buick version. It would have been nice. You have a wireless phone charging pad here. More piano black plastic. You have 2 USB ports there, a USB-C and a USB-A. And then you can see here, put the vehicle into reverse. It has a high definition rear vision camera. That's going to be standard. Buick says that they actually were very proud of the fact that they were able to use a high-def camera. The screen quality looks good, and it's definitely a huge improvement over, other entry-level models. This controls the 6-speed automatic. It's a very traditional shifter. It includes a manual mode here if you start pushing on the little toggle over here. Cup holders over here, which are pretty good size. You have a little bit more storage here, and then you have a center console cubby here that opens up, obviously, and it has a pretty deep amount of storage, so that's nice for those of you who need to hide away your stuff. Now, in terms of the seats, the driver's seat that I'm sitting in here is an 8-way power seat. Like I said, it's heated. And then this interior color, Buick says it's kind of like a two-tone. It's a black interior with the terracotta stitching. So it has kind of like this copperish tan color to the seats with this kind of unique pattern. You can also get like a Gideon, which is like bluish and grayish accents on the Avenir trim, along with the Avenir that's kind of embossed in the actual head restraints. It's a nice feeling seat. The seats themselves, they feel comfortable. They actually feel nicer to me versus the Trax. So keep that in mind if you're kind of comparing the two. Above me here, you can see there's a nice sunroof, which has a very traditional look to it. It has a manual shade that covers up if you guys want to block out the sun. The headliner, you can see, has a woven material. There is, sadly, just incandescent lighting throughout the vehicle, and then I don't believe there's any ambient lighting. Remember, this is all to a certain price point. And then you can see here the glove compartment. It's damped. It's a bin style. It's actually pretty big, but it's not lined with felt. And then the stereo system, it's not anything premium. It's not like a Bose or Harman Kardon or anything. I believe Buick said it had like 8 speakers, and it sounded okay, nothing super special. Remember, this vehicle is all to a certain price point, but what Buick did get right, however, is the tech, because of the large 11-inch screen with the wireless CarPlay, and it also feels relatively roomy in here. And this is an early pre-production model, but I didn't notice any kind of squeaks and rattles and whatnot, so I think it's a very nice place to spend time considering the price point of this model. Now, moving into the back seat of the Envista, because this is based on the Trax with that longer wheelbase, you actually have a surprisingly roomy rear seat for a vehicle in this class. Now, you will notice because of the reduced height, Buick says this is about 3 inches lower than the Encore GX. It does affect the headroom, but let me get back here and shut the door. You can see, for somebody my height, I can sit back here and my head doesn't even touch the ceiling. I'm 5'7". I imagine for those of you who are over 6 feet, though, this is going to be a little bit tight in terms of the headroom space. In terms of legroom, however, there's a lot. 38.7 inches, which is a huge number. I mean, this is a good 3 to 5 inches more than a lot of its competitors. Materials back here, sadly, are all hard touch plastic. It is thankfully padded over here, although this area here is kind of like a cheap plastic. There is 2 USB charge ports back here, a USB-C and a USB-A. No rear seat air vents. It would have been nice to see, Buick include that on this on their premium version. You have 2 storage pockets here. And then in terms of the seats themselves, you can see you can fold them down, which creates a nearly flat floor. This is going to be good for those of you who need to store longer items. Buick actually says this car will accommodate 7 feet long items diagonally when you have the seats folded down. So that's actually a pretty nifty little trick. But put this back, you can see the seat doesn't recline, but there is an armrest here that folds down, gives you 2 cup holders. And overall, for a car that's not really designed to be a roomy vehicle on the outside, it certainly has a pretty good amount of space back here. So you could put child seats back here, but just keep in mind, I did notice the rear door doesn't open as wide as some competing vehicles in a size up class. So as you guys probably noticed, new vehicles are just getting really, really expensive. So to see a brand new car from Buick, that's their entry-level vehicle that starts well under $25,000, is a pretty impressive feat. Now, when I actually had a chance to drive this platform in the Chevrolet Trax a couple of months ago, you know what, I was relatively impressed with the package. I mean, you have to keep in mind the price point for this vehicle. For a car that starts in the low $20,000 range, the one I'm driving is just a smidge over 30. It is still a fantastic deal, and even though you cannot get all-wheel drive on this model, Buick obviously has a solution for you with that. If you need all-wheel drive, you can always just go buy the Encore GX. That's going to have the available all-wheel drive. This model here, with its 1.2-liter turbocharged 3-cylinder with direct injection. It has a 6-speed automatic transmission in this vehicle, not a CVT. It's an interesting powertrain combination that I think most people are going to find really nice to drive compared to naturally aspirated engines that don't have any torque, that have a CVT, that just kind of drone and drone. There's no drive mode selector for this vehicle. It's essentially just put it in drive and put your foot down. There is a manual-ish mode here as well if you guys use this little toggle here, but put my foot down, you can see pretty decent acceleration actually, and the sound of this 3-cylinder is also really, really interesting. It's actually a little more appealing to me and my ears compared to a droney 4-cylinder with a CVT that's naturally aspirated, because we have that 162 pound-feet of torque. Just put your foot down again. It just gives you a nice satisfying rush of torque, and that's kind of what, you know, makes this car more appealing. It feels a little more effortless, especially if you guys live in areas of elevation where you're going to want that extra torque. It's just going to make this thing a little bit more pleasant to drive. So that's something to, you know, keep in mind when you guys are, you know, shopping in this particular class of vehicle. It's just a pleasant driving car overall. But let's go ahead and see what we can get 0 to 60 wise. Buick doesn't quote it, but we'll brake torque it. It actually spun out the front tires a little bit, which is kind of funny actually. You feel the shifts. They're a little bit on the slow side, but 9.26 seconds. That's actually not bad. That's a smidge faster than what I got in the Chevrolet Trax, actually. And while again, 9.26 is nothing special, the feel of this car makes it feel a little bit more peppy than that. I mean, I like the engine sound. I like the smoothness of the 6-speed auto, although it shifts a little bit slow. The steering in this vehicle also is really quick, actually. It's really quick and responsive. The suspension feels soft, although this model that I'm driving has the upgraded multi-link independent rear suspension, which Buick says they've made it, you know, even quieter in the Avenir trim. It's all about their quiet tuning feel that they go for. And I have to say, for a car that starts at well under $25,000, the ride quality is good, the smoothness of the steering and the suspension is good. There's not much in terms of road and engine noise or wind noise. So remember, Buick likes to occupy like a little bit of a white space here and give us a quieter, more premium feeling car. And I kind of feel that with this vehicle. I mean, for a vehicle that is their entry level car, this is their least expensive vehicle, I certainly don't get that feeling. I mean, there are aspects of this interior that kind of remind you are in a cheaper car. I don't love the graphics in the infotainment system. I don't love the fact that you can't get dual zone automatic climate control in this car. There's some buttons here that are unused a little bit, where I would have liked to see them, you know, offer something else to, you know, make this interior look a little bit more like it has all the available features, because I am driving the fully loaded version. But overall, it's a nice driving car that will seriously appeal to those of you on a budget, but it also doesn't look like a budget-minded car, and that's what makes the Envista super appealing. Just keep in mind, if you guys want all-wheel drive, Buick will happily sell you an Encore GX, but if you guys live in areas where you don't need all-wheel drive, this vehicle should definitely make it to the top of your list. Do I like it more than the Chevrolet Trax? There are certain aspects of it that I do. It really is going to come down to your specific tastes. Personally, I do think this car is a better-looking vehicle versus the Chevy. So with the average new car transaction price approaching $50,000, it's really refreshing to see a brand new car from any manufacturer that starts at well under $25,000. Remember, this car is Buick's entry-level model, but it certainly doesn't look entry-level on the outside. And then, as you guys saw from the rest of the video, it also doesn't drive surprisingly terrible. It has a good power and good torque from the 1.2-liter engine. The 6-speed auto is also smooth. We got 0 to 60 in 9.2 seconds, which is definitely not fast, but it is faster than vehicles like the Honda HR-V or a Subaru Crosstrek 2-liter, so kind of keep that in mind. The turbo power of this engine is definitely going to make this car feel a little bit more upscale, a little bit more effortless. And then in terms of the interior, I don't love the infotainment system the way it looks. However, I do love the software that they've used for the wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. I just think that there are certain things in this vehicle's interior which I would have liked to see Buick kind of do things a little differently compared to the Chevy. I would have liked to see them offer like cooled seats, for example, and just kind of make this car feel a little bit more upscale. It already feels good as it is. However, on the outside, I think this car, Buick nailed the look of it more versus the interior. I think there are certain things that Buick could have done a little bit differently. But in terms of everything else, the driving dynamics, the practicality, and the pricing, if you guys are looking to get your hands on this vehicle, it is heading to dealership showrooms this summer. So basically, it should be sometime in early July or August. And the base price of this vehicle is going to start at $23,495, so $23,500. That's including the $1,000 destination charge. So again, really big of a steal. It's a steal if you guys are looking for an affordable car. Now keep in mind, if you guys want all-wheel drive, it's not available. You're gonna have to go up to the Encore GX, but if you guys want the ST trim, the mid-trim, which is the sportier offering, that's gonna cost you about $2,000 more. This Avenir version is basically fully loaded. It starts at just under $30,000, like 5, for example, with the options that my test car is gonna have, although it's kind of missing the driver assistance package, this one here comes in at just over $31,000 with the paint charge and a couple of small options, which again, around $30,000 fully loaded is a steal when you consider the fact that a lot of cars today are being sold for nearly $50,000. And if you guys are comparing this car to the Chevrolet Trax, I personally think this is the better looking version of the two vehicles, but kind of just keep in mind that styling is always subjective. With all that said, hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the brand new 2024 Buick Envista. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews. Like us on Facebook, and as always guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.